Hey guys, what's up? Jordy here for Tuts Plus Premium and welcome to my course. In this video lesson, I'm going to teach you the DSLR workflow for when it comes to editing. I'm not going to teach you how the video editing software works that I'm about to use or explain you editing techniques. The workflow of the DSLR editing is somehow the same in most editing applications, whether you work in Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro, or Avid. This lesson is going to show you a workflow within Premiere Pro. If you would like to learn more about this application, then just click on my name and you'll see that I also have a beginner's course and an advanced course here on Tuts Plus Premium. Alright guys, let's get started with it. So the first thing that you have to do is of course connect your SD card or CF card to your computer. And we'll just drag all the files into a folder. Like that. Now, before I'm going to launch Adobe Premiere Pro CS6, I first want to talk about native editing versus intermediate editing. When an editing application supports your video files, then you can work native. That means you can import your video files directly and start editing. Now, when it doesn't support your video files, you will first have to convert those to another format in order to start editing. This is called intermediate. Back in the days before Premiere Pro CS5 or within Final Cut Pro 7, we had to work intermediate. And people would transcode their video files to the ProRes codec. Now today, Final Cut Pro 10 and Premiere Pro CS5 and above supports the codec of which the DSLR camera records in. But still, a lot of people keep converting their DSLR video files because a DSLR records in an H.264 codec. Whenever your computer is pretty slow, it will have a hard time editing those files, because decoding that codec is a bigger process than with the ProRes codec. Now, all the stories that tells you can't color grade or do visual effects on native DSLR footage are wrong. If you didn't record at a 14-bit with a 444 sampling, you can also not convert your files to that. It's like having 2 candies and you want to convert it to 6 candies. That is by the law of physics impossible. Same thing goes for converting your DSLR files. So my advice is not to convert your DSLR video files because you will only lose time with doing that. You don't win anything. So let me open Adobe Premiere Pro CS6. And the first thing we'll have to do is start a new project. And I'm going to save it in the same folder as where I've put my video files. Let's name the project DSLR and press OK. Premiere Pro works with sequences, which you have to define at front. I haven't worked in Final Cut Pro 10 yet, but I guess you will also have to define a timeline over there. And you can see that Premiere Pro also has some preset sequences for the DSLR. 1080p or 720p. I have recorded in a 1080p at 25 frames per second, so I'm going to choose that sequence. Press OK and welcome in Premiere Pro. Now head over to your video file, right here, and drag that into Premiere. Alright, you can now start doing your editing. I'm just going to drag that one file and pretend this is an awesome edit. Alright, we have recorded in the cine style picture style, with sharpness all the way down, contrast all the way down, and saturation reduced. This gives us a lot of possibilities when we are going to do color grading. And I'm going to teach you that in the next lesson. For now, we just want to make this image look good in several seconds, so that means a basic color correction. We'll start by creating an adjustment layer. By doing this, we only need to apply the color correction once, and it will affect everything below that adjustment layer. So just drag that adjustment layer on top of your edit and make it the same length. Then we'll head over to the effects, and the first thing we want to do is add some sharpness. because this was recorded without any digital sharpness within the camera. And when we search for sharp within the effects, we can find two plugins: Sharpen and Unsharp Mask. Now, a lot of people are going to shoot me, but I do recommend to use the normal Sharpen plugin. And I have two reasons for that. The first reason is this icon over here. And that indicates that this plugin is an accelerated effect, which means we don't have to render our footage in order to see the effect properly. And the second thing is that you can barely see any difference between them both. Let me drag the unsharpened mask on it for a second. And you can already see that my timeline turned red, which indicates that it requires rendering. Now in the effects controls, you can see that it gives me a lot of properties to customize the sharpening. Now you can play with these settings a whole day and maybe still didn't find the right thing. As you probably noticed also yourself, we can't add too much sharpness, of course. So I'm just going to delete this effect and drag the normal sharpening on it. Now we only have one property. And my timeline stays yellow, which means I can play this effect in real time. Now again, I can't go too high with this effect or we'll see artifacts. But to give you an idea, something between a value of 20 to a maximum of 50 will do the job greatly. And that will give us a nice crisp looking image. It's done very easily, and I'm sure you are able to get a slightly better result with the other plugin, but you need to ask yourself, is it worth the rendering and the time spent within the effect? Besides, if you deliver videos for the internet, then I'm almost sure you won't see any difference. Alright, that's it for the sharpness. The next thing is a basic color correction to fix that flat image. When you record with CineStyle, you get a logarithmic contrast curve. So what we are going to do is make this curve linear. So within the effects, we'll search for curves. And we'll take the RGB curves to our adjustment layer. Now, don't look at the image for a second, but I'm just going to draw the original curve. And that'll be something like this. I've increased the shadows and decreased the highlights. And when you now look at the image, you'll see that I flatten it even more. So to bring the original logarithmic curve to this linear curve when I reset the effect, we'll bring it to the other side and create an S-curve. And now you can see we have a nice looking contrast image. Also the colors are more saturated and that lifts the flat image. Now, you're probably wondering, why did I record in a flat picture style then? Well, when I take a look at this image, the shadows are a bit too dark. If I would have recorded in a linear curve, then it was hard to fix those shadows. Now, I can easily bring it back to the original state, and you'll see that I gain more detail in the shadows. If you need to deliver your work fast, then just apply a quick S-curve over your edit. But when you do see an under or overexposed image, you can fix it more easily with this picture style. Alright guys, that was it for the workflow. The next thing is just exporting your video. But again, this is not an editing course, so just click on my name and you'll find a beginner's lesson and an advanced lesson to export your video within Premiere Pro. Now the settings are basically the same, so Final Cut Pro or avid users, you can also learn from those lessons. Same thing goes for what I've taught you in this lesson. You can also find a sharpening tool and a curves within Final Cut or Avid. Thanks a lot for watching guys, and in the next lesson I'm going to teach you some basic techniques for when it comes to color correction on DSLR footage.